Well, to my North Park community, good to connect once again with Darryl Reckman. Darryl, we talked to a few weeks ago, and we've been supporting the work of Sanctuary London, a church in downtown who engages with their friends, who many of them are homeless or underhoused, if we could say, and have so many pieces they deal with. And you and your partner Gil, as well as staff there, have just been doing amazing work, and we're privileged to come alongside them to do a little bit of assistance as we can, and we're going to continue to do that. But I thought it'd be great to bring Darryl back and to hear what's been going on. It was 8 weeks, I think, since we last talked.
Yep.
And what's been taking place amidst COVID and the work they're doing. And so let's just jump in this conversation and see where it takes us. But initially, I'd just like to know, it's been 8 weeks. What's ministry looking like for you guys these days? How have you had to even adjust over the last 8-10 weeks? As you probably started with great thoughts, but then obviously theories tend to change as we actually get in the middle of it. So what have you guys learned, practically speaking, as how you can do the ministry with your friends?
Right. Matt, one of the first things I want to say is, first of all, a huge thank you. I wanted to interview with you today because you guys have been supporting us and behind us in incredible ways. And the North Park community a couple of times has gathered together and made some baked goods for us. And one of the reason I start with that is because you asked what some of the key things that we're learning. And our friends feel very isolated, and they feel almost, and I'm sure everyone feels this to a certain extent, but they feel like they need to be sterilized. So everywhere they go, people are wearing gloves and washing their hands like crazy, wearing masks and face shields and staying a far distance apart, which we're all experiencing that. But for people who have experienced that their entire life, it's a challenging thing. And so everything is hands off, everything is at a distance. There's very little that's personal in their lives right now. Especially if you're underhoused or you're on the street, you're experiencing isolation, so they don't even have family or other loved ones to have that little bit of connection that some of us have, which has kept me alive myself, being able to hug my girls and things like that. So any kind of personal touch that we can do with them, and personal touch goes beyond physical touch, right? So a baked good, a homemade baked good is symbolic of so much for our people. And we get that comment all the time. Everywhere they go, the food is packaged. It's usually pre-bought stuff. It's a granola bar in a juice box and like a pre-made meal or whatever, but usually not homemade. And anything that we can do that's homemade. So thank you so much for that. That was a beautiful gift. And I can't believe how overwhelmed we were. I think you had to give some away to other organizations just because the response was so amazing. And so thank you guys for that. What an amazing gift to our community. We thank you for that.
I would have never thought that something homemade actually has that big of an impact, but you've heard that from your friends, and that piece is amazing.
It really does.
Okay.
Yeah. We're also starting to do, the weather's getting hot, so we've had to redesign where our lines are going. We were in the blazing sun for the first little while, and now it's just far too hot, so we're lining up at the front of the church instead of the side where there's shade and there's a little bit more trees. It's almost a little bit more gardeny out there, so it's been beautiful that way. And then finding ways to help keep people cool while they're waiting in line. We have a few friends who show up, honestly, before I get there. So I arrive on a Wednesday, I would arrive at 1 o'clock. I have a couple of people who are there usually already. And I'm inside cooking from 1 till 5, and they're there to wait in line at 5. And so they're sitting in the sun, and so we're looking for freezies and cold drinks and stuff like that just to give to people while they're waiting and help try to keep them cool.
So what else are you hearing from your friends? As you've engaged these conversations, maybe they're telling you directly, you're just intuiting, wow, this is something's interesting happening. Obviously, your friends are excluded in the best of times. You're sharing that they're even feeling more excluded in these times.
Right.
What else are you learning? What do we need to know, I guess, Darryl, is my question.
Well, so many of their regularly safe spaces are not available. So they are sitting on the side of the street and getting in trouble for that. But where else can you go? Libraries, they're open to do online booking and everything. You can pick up your books, but that's a key place where our people like to stay cool and stay warm when it's cold out. You can't go there. They can't go to the market. They can't go to all these other drop-ins that would normally be open, and everything's changed. So we're seeing more visibility of people hanging out on the streets, hanging out in the street corners. And I think one thing that we need to remember as a church community is these people are there not necessarily by choice. And it's hard. So we can point the finger and say, hey, they're not social distancing or physical distancing and things like that. And what I would prefer is a whole bunch of grace for this community that didn't cause this virus, but the impacts of this virus are having a huge and particularly significant effect on them.
How are you seeing mental health? Obviously, many of your friends deal with mental health concerns. Yeah. Is that even increasing? Is it showing up in new ways now with your friends?
I think it's 100% increasing for sure. Loneliness is a huge contributor to mental health and trauma, and this whole pandemic, I think, is almost re-traumatizing for a lot of our people. So mental health is through the roof. And so it's natural and normal for people when they're struggling to lash out, and you see some anger, you see some yelling sometimes. Especially if we come in and we assume some sort of position of power. It's people in power who have hurt our friends initially and caused the original trauma. And so even with the best intentions, I have power over these people as a service provider, and so that can be re-traumatizing. So we're doing everything we can to come in as a friend, as a gentle person who wants to learn from our friends and get to know them as people first and friends first. Yeah, it's a challenging thing. How do you do that when you're working a full-time job or you're at home with kids and you're not rubbing shoulders all the time? It's a challenging thing, but it's a challenge that I think has to be put out there.
Yeah, for sure. Are you seeing God show up in unique ways in this time for yourself or the work? I'm always trying to find God. You're always doing things. You're always working. Show me where you're working, even if I can't. Yeah. It looks like you're not. Reveal things. So what are you seeing in this whole journey? Yeah, amazing things. And then the stories we could take all day. But we had one time in the past, however long COVID has been going on, that we've been doing at the door meals to go. We had only one time that we kind of ran out of food, and it was after 6 o'clock. We, on Wednesday we'll hand out food from 5 till 6, and then we hang out afterwards in the parking lot a little bit for those who really need to chat. We try to keep a distance, but we'll be available for conversation and things like that. And someone came late, and we were all out of food, and we gave away seconds to a few people just because it was 6 o'clock, and we were not going to throw the food out. But then someone comes late and we had nothing left to give, and we're kind of heartbroken because this was an individual who really is sleeping rough every night and has been for years with nowhere else to go. And one of our other friends, also sleeping rough, just came up. He said, they might be out of food, but I'm not. I took an extra. And he doesn't know where his next meal is going to be. He thought he did because it was in his bag and he was going to take it back to wherever he was staying. But to provide that to another person in the community is just a huge symbol of God showing up. All kinds of stories like that. The amazing response from communities like North Park and other communities who have just supported us. And so we're so thankful for that. Our support has not decreased. There's been a few, monthly supporters who have had to say, because of the financial situation, we just can't do it. Yep. Totally understandable, right? But the amount of other people who have stepped up and without me going to engage them have called me to say, how is your support doing? How are you guys doing? Are you making ends meet? We heard that your cost have increased because of packaging materials and all this kind of stuff. Can we give more? And that is just a thing that just blows me away. So we're so thankful for that. What stresses are you feeling these days? Personally, as you engage in, or is there new stresses for you or different stresses or... Yeah, I think it's just finding some time. Time is a huge factor, and with two girls at home, Sarah and I also, Sarah's also working full time, and I've shared this before, but it's hard to find that brain space to just keep going when the kids are always around and we love them, and it's been a real joy to spend some extra time with our girls. But then working late, on the computer in bed to try to catch up on other things has been a bit of a challenge. So, Interesting. Yeah, feeling like quiet time would be very much appreciated. What do you find yourself praying about these days as you're going to those moments? What comes to your mind, and what's the Spirit revealed to you to pray for, pray about, that hopefully we can come alongside and pray as well? Yeah, just praying that this whole pandemic would have a huge impact on our long-term lives long after the pandemic's over. In what way? Praying that people would be sensitive to people out there who don't have a lot, and sometimes when you see an extreme situation that that's caused by this virus,
it can awaken people's minds and help them to understand and dig a little bit deeper and what's really going on, and then finding that the issues that caused homelessness in the first place are way beyond. That's not the virus's fault. That's faults within society that we can begin to work on and talk about, and hopefully work towards change and follow the Spirit in the way that He's doing amazing things. Yeah.
So give me some practical guidance. I bike along the Thames Valley Parkway all the time.
Yeah.
Under bridges, and I come across people who are homeless. They're sleeping there, whatever else. That's not that they're sleeping. I move on. And what should or should I not do and or say?
Right.
I always try to say hi to everybody, always waving and that kind of thing. Yeah. Times I'm wondering what, and so it's a basic question for me. I'm not sure. What would you do? How would you engage this piece? Just give us some practical things. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no easy or quick answers of this is right and this is wrong, but the big overarching thing is go in with humility. Go in with a gentle spirit. Don't come from a position of power. If someone is interested in engaging in conversation, get down to their level. Never speak over somebody. People of power and enforcing power, they do that. They'll speak over physically. Get down to their level. Look them in the eye. And more than anything, try to remember their name for the next time you see them. That is one thing that has a huge impact on people. You remembered my name. Everybody else just bikes by or walks by or crosses to the other side so they don't have to walk by me because they don't. I make them uncomfortable. But you remembered my name. You remembered my name. That's amazing. So I love that you're smiling at people. I love that you're waving and just saying hello. That's huge because so often our people just feel like they're not human. They feel invisible. They're walked past all the time and usually ignored, if not abused in some way.
What about practical helps? Is it good for me to be carrying a couple of bottles of water with me and giving them to, or a muffin, or how is that interpreted from someone who lives in the street?
If you do it with a gentle spirit, it is greatly appreciated. If you go in there with power and, hey, I'm here to fix you, you might get the water bottle fired back at you. And that could happen. And your reaction to that, I think, is extremely important. Are you going to take that and say, well, people experiencing homelessness are horrible people and they're angry all the time and they deserve to be there? Or are you going to say, what's causing that hurt? And probably their reaction to me has very little to do with me and a whole lot to do with the pain of their past. So how can I respond in an even more gentle and loving way next time to try to communicate, I see you, I recognize you as human, and I'm there with you and I want to be there with you. Yeah.
Darryl, so appreciate it and your updates. And we want to continue to work with Sanctuary. Once again, this next week, we've been collecting water bottles and juice boxes and sports drinks, as well as, once again, muffins and cookies. And so if you can participate, this is one way we're going to support the work that Darryl's doing. Obviously, many of us can't step in to do this. There's so many restrictions, but something we can do is this. And we'll keep getting updates from Sanctuary as to what they're doing. So Darryl, greatly appreciate what you're doing. I pray that you'll find strength, physical, mental, spiritual strength, and wholeness for yourself, even as you keep entering into these moments, and blessings for what you're doing. So grateful for that. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me, Matt.
All right, thanks.
It's great to be here.